Look, you're starting Antonio Gibson Week 9 against the Minnesota Vikings. No, this is not the beginning of the season when Antonio Gibson was just getting sprinkled in with like 20-25% of snaps. No, Antonio Gibson's going to get 40-50% of the snaps. He's going to be splitting carries with Brian Robinson. But the reason why you're starting him is because J.D. McKissic is out. And it's not like Antonio Gibson hasn't been useful. Like, if you've had to plug him into your lineup the last 3 weeks, he's been a top 24 back. He hasn't let you down from that front. Like, obviously, your expectations are lowered because Antonio Gibson is not getting the majority of the carries. But Brian Robinson hasn't been super efficient. Antonio Gibson has been. And he's been a top 24 back. Antonio Gibson has had 4 straight games of 4 or more targets, and now he has even more of the passing work. Like, think of when J.D. McKissic was out last year. Antonio Gibson had some of his highest spike weeks of the season. And so it's going to be key for you to, I don't know if you have a small or shallow league and Antonio Gibson is on your waiver wire. He might be. Probably not, but worth checking. Or even reaching out to a league mate and trying to buy low on Antonio Gibson, right? There's still like there's a haze and narrative surrounding Gibson that he's just not going to be involved. There's a lot of hate in the fantasy community and burn because Antonio Gibson was relegated to, the second back on the team. Let me tell you, he might be the second back in carries, but he's going to be the first one in fantasy points. It's just he's so dynamic. He's a great athlete, the former wide receiver out of Memphis. And so against the Minnesota Vikings, this is a plus matchup. He should be able to get run. The Minnesota Vikings defense is not good. And I would expect that this is one of those games where the Vikings and the Washington Commanders both go at it offensively. The Commanders face a pass defense for the Vikings that give up the 4th most passing yards to quarterbacks. And if you're thinking, who is Taylor Heineke going to be throwing to? Well, it's going to be McLaurin. It wasn't Logan Thomas last week, but it is very comfortably Antonio Gibson. So look for Heineke and Gibson a lot in this game against the Minnesota Vikings. Fire up Gibson in your starting lineups as a mid-pack running back too, and we'll go from there. All right, that's where I'll have him ranked, at least at about running back 20 or so. It depends on. This is a rough week for running backs too, with all the buys and everything. So at least a top 20 running back. I might even move him higher as the dust settles going into Sunday. Play Antonio Gibson.